Welcome to our channel today. We'll be looking at sorts. We'll be looking at simplification of sorts, how to simplify sorts, and this is very easy and very fast to understand. So if today is your first time, do well to like, subscribe, and follow for more detailed math videos like this. Okay? So let's commence immediately. So what do we mean by sort? Whenever you hear the term sort in maths, we are talking about irrational numbers. Whenever you hear about sorts in maths, we are talking about irrational numbers, the square root of the irrational numbers. So when we take the square root of an irrational number, we are talking about sorts. So in our today's class, we'll be learning how to simplify sorts. Okay? So let's take, for instance, we are told to simplify the square root of 50. Okay? Root 50. Okay? To simplify this sort, it is very, very easy. All you need to do to simplify the sort, root 50, is very simple. You look at the number in the square root. Okay? You are going to think or find the perfect square. Okay? That multiplies to get the number in the square root, but one of them will be a perfect square, the other will not be a perfect square. So when you have 50, you can see that 50, these are the perfect square we have. 1 is 1, 4 is a perfect square, and the square root is 2. 9 gives 3. 16, the square root is 4. 25, the square root is 5, and amongst others. So to simplify sorts, we are going to think about the number that multiplies to get the square root, the two numbers that multiplies to get the number in the square root. But the thing there is that the two numbers, one will be a perfect square, the other will not be a perfect square. Please tell us where you're watching from if you are new. So here we have root 50. Root 50 will be the same as, you can see that when you multiply 25, which is a perfect square. Thank you for joining, okay? Please like the live and also share. When you multiply 25, which is a perfect square, you multiply it to 2, and 2 is not a perfect square, okay? So since you have this, it is very simple to continue. Now you have root 25 times 2. You know 25 times 2 is 50. Now you have to break it down because square root of 25 times square root of what? 2. So what is square root of 25, please? What is the square root of 25? If you are following, let's know in the comments. What is the square root of 25? Let's know that in the comments if you are following. Square root of 25 is what? Square root of 25 is basically 5. So the answer is 5 root 2. So the answer is 5 root 2. So you can see that we've simplified this sort to be what? 5 root 2. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the likes. So 50 is the same thing as 5 root 2 to its basic form. Let's take a look at another one. Let's say we are told to simplify another sort, and the sort in question is the square root of 72. If you are a sharp learner, let's know whether you can know the answer, like simplifying the sort of root 72. For you to do this, it is very, very easy. Do you know what you are going to do? You are going to think of two numbers that multiplies to get 72. But the thing there is that one of the numbers will be a perfect square, while the other will not be a perfect square. So if you look at the list of the perfect square, can you tell me in the comments the one that is a perfect square? Can you tell me the perfect square that matches this problem? Can you tell me the perfect square that matches this problem? Can you tell me the perfect square that matches this problem? Okay, correct. You said 3 root 6. Let's check. Remember, when you multiply When you multiply, what's that, 36 by 2, what do you get? When you multiply 36 by 2, what's the answer? It's 72, right? So, but what you have to observe here is that 36 is a perfect square. Y2, it is not a perfect square. So this is a best option to do this. So what do? We split it in the sense that we have it as square root of 36 times the square root of 2. What is the square root of 36? If you are following, what is the square root of 36? What is the square root of 36? If you are following, what is the square root of 36? Let's know that in the comments. What is the square root of 36? What is the square root of 36? The square root of 36 is 6. So the answer is 6 root 2. That's the answer. Good. Let's look at the next one. You see that simplification of sorts is very, very easy and very interesting. Thank you so much for Sotec B49 for writing the answer. I really appreciate your time. Then the next one we have is the square root of 125. We are told to simplify this sort, the square root of 125. To do this, we must first of all understand what sorts is all about and how to reduce it to its basic form. For us to reduce this sort to its basic form, it is very, very easy. All we need to do, thank you for the answer. All we need to do is simple. All we need to do is very, very simple. We first of all have to do what? We have to simplify the sort. What do? Look at it, you have it as root 75. If you have root 75, it is very, very what? Easy to do. Okay? What do you have to do? You just have to think of two numbers that multiplies to get the number in the square root. So let's use, if you look at it, it's best to use 25 times 5 because 25 times 5 is 125, right? If you're following, say yes. Sergeant, thank you. So since you have that, you can now see that you write it as the square root of 25 times the square root of what? 5, right? So what is the square root of 25 if you're following? What's the square root of 25? The square root of 25 is basically what? 5. So the answer is 5 root 5. If you get 5 root 5, say yes. If you get 5 root 5, say yes. Okay, that becomes the what? Answer. So let's continue again. Let's look at the next problem that follows. Let's look at the next problem that follows. Let's try to, okay, thank you so much for the commenting. Thank you for the motivation, B29. So let's look at the square root of 18. Let's try to simplify this sort, the square root of 18. Remember, when we try to simplify sorts, it is very easy. First thing we have to do for ourselves is just to check to know to it's just very simple. We are going to look at the numbers and find the closest perfect square for the number. Here we are having the square root of 18. What is the closest perfect square to 18? The closest perfect square to 18 is 9 and what? 2. 9 is a perfect square. 2 is not a perfect square. So what do you do to simplify this? You break the number inside the square root and simplify it very well. Okay? So you have it as 9 times 2. Then what is the square root of 9? What is the square root of 9? What is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is 3. So the answer is 3 root 2. And that's the answer. So this is the simple way we use to simplify sorts. Okay? Then let's look at the next one. Let's say we have the square root of 80. Okay? We have root 80. I'm trying, okay, you said 3. You are right. Rob123, thank you for joining. Please like the live, okay? So we have the next one, which is root 80. Can you guess the two perfect squares we are going to use? What's the perfect square we are going to use? Okay, so if you have this type of number, we are looking at root 80. So what are the what one perfect square is best for it? Do you know? Yeah, the best perfect square to use is the product of 16 and 5. You know, 16 times 5 is 80. But all you have to note is that 16 is the perfect square, while 5 is not the perfect square. So since you have this, it is very simple. So this is basically square root of 16 times square root of 5. What is the square root of 16? Correct? Sotek, correct. What is the square root of 16? What is the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is 4. The answer becomes 4 root 5. That's the answer. So simplifying surd is easy. Let's look at a bit complex one that might need a little trick to simplify. We are told to do 3 root 27. Let's simplify 3 root 27. To simplify this, it is very, very easy. Okay, so what do you have to do? Forget the 3 here. It's just an ordinary multiplier. So this is just 27. So what are the two perfect squares we are going to use to deal with 27? We are going to look at what? 3 into. You have to see that the perfect square equation that can solve this very well is basically what? 3 and what? The perfect square that can do that is very simple. You can see that we have it as 9 and 3 because 9 is a perfect square, 3 is not a perfect square. Correct for joining? Correct for your answers? So what do you have? Square root of 9 is 3. So 3 times 3, then you have it as what? Root 3. 3 times 3 is 9. The answer is 9 root 3. Very, very simple. So simplifying sorts is very easy so far you understand the method properly. Okay, the next one is, let's look at 2 root 12. 2 root 12. To simplify the sort, it is very, very easy. Once you have 2 root 12, it is easy to simplify. This is basically 2 into, then you look at 12. What's the perfect square we are going to use? What's the best perfect square to use here? For you to do 12? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for that. Please like the live. Support me by liking the live. Campero. I can't pronounce it. So we have it as you have it as 4 times 3. Okay? 4 is now the perfect square, while 3 is not a perfect square. So the next thing you have to do is very simple. You take the square root of 4 and take the square root of 3. What is the square root of 4, please? What is the square root of 4? If you're following, what's the square root of 4? What is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. So you have 2 times 2 root 3. Okay? What is 2 times 2 here? What is 2 times 2? What is 2 times 2? 2 times 2 is 4. The answer is 4 root 3. That's the answer. So this is the simple way to simplify sorts. Okay? This is a very easy way to simplify sorts. Let's continue. Let's continue. So the next one on our list is, let's say we are trying to divide sort. Let's say we have the square root of 45 divided by the square root of 45 divided by the square root of 5. This is a bit tricky, but it's simple. I believe you, if you just try to apply the rules of sort, it will take a bit time, but using a shortcut can help. So when you have this, you remember the laws of sort, which says that root of A divided by root of B is the same thing as the square root of A over B. Okay? So since you agree with this rule, it is very simple. What do? Since these are this, you can put them in the same square root, right? So you have square root of 45, 45 over the square root of 5. So 45 divided by 5, it is very simple because 45 divided by 5 is 9. So you have the square root of 9, and square root of 9 is a very simple answer to get. What is square root of 9? Let's know that in the comments. What's the square root of 9? Let's know that in the comments. If you are following, please, if you are following, what's the square root of 9? Please, what's the square root of 9? Please. The square root of 9 is 3. So 3 is the answer to this. So let's look at the next one. We have the next one, which is rationalization of sorts. What do we mean by the term rationalization of sorts? To rationalize sorts, it is very, very easy. Okay? Our goal here is to remove the irrational part from the denominator. Okay? Let's say we have this 1 over root 3. We are trying to rationalize this sort. This is a sort, and our goal is to rationalize the sort. To rationalize this sort, it is very, very easy. Okay? What do you have to do when you are trying to rationalize a sort like this? It is very simple. Our goal is to remove this irrational part from the denominator. That's the goal. So what you need to do to be able to rationalize this sort is just simple. Multiply the denominator by the same irrational part, root 3. The reason for the multiplication, thank you. Okay, you want to join to learn. Okay, you are free. Please like the live and share, okay? Frank Holder, like the live and share, okay? Thank you. So since you multiply by the same irrational part, you should also multiply the numerator by the same irrational part so that we get rid of, the goal of rationalization is to get rid of the square root in the denominator. So since you have that, what do? You multiply out, okay? So we have 1 times the root of 3, okay? All over the root of 3. Remember, when you are multiplying sort, you are free to multiply the numbers. Okay? So you have 3 times 3. What's 3 times 3, please? If you are following, what's 3 times 3, please? If you are following, what is 3 times 3, please? If you are following, what's 3 times 3, please? Frank Hodler, where are you watching from? This becomes root 3. Then 3 times 3 is root 9. Okay? So here you just have to do square root of 9 is 3. So it's very simple that your answer will simply be root 3 over 3. Okay? That's the simple answer. Okay? So the next one, let's say we are told to rationalize the next sort. Please tell us where you're watching from if you were to help us. Tell us where you're watching from. If you want to rationalize something like 1 over 2 root 5, for instance. You want to rationalize this sort. Let's know, fastest finger. Can you be able to do that? To rationalize this sort, it is very simple. Please, guys, where are you watching from? Please, where are you watching from? So to rationalize this sort, it is very simple. So you have it as 1. All you have to do for me is simple. 1 over 2 root 5. You multiply the denominator by just the irrational part. Okay? What's the irrational part? The irrational part is the root 5. Just multiply just root 5. Then since you multiply root 5 to the denominator here, all you need to do is to multiply the same root 5 to the numerator so that you maintain equivalence. So you have to multiply root 5. Here you don't have to divide because if you divide, you get 1. The reason for the multiplication is to get rid of the irrational root 5 in the denominator only. Okay? So since you have this, what do you observe? You have it as 1 times root 5 over 2 root 5 times 5. What's root 5 times 5, please? What's root 5 times 5? What's root 5 times 5? That's basically root 5 over root 5 times 5 is 5. is 25, and square root of 25 is what? What is the square root of 25? What is the square root of 25? What is the square root of 25? The square root of 25 is what? 5. So you have it as 5. You multiply with the 2 because of these 2. So if you look at this well, you see that your answer is going down to be root 5 over 10. This is the answer. If you get this, let us know. Please like the live. Please like the live, please. I beg you, like the live, please. Like the live. Like the live. So you have it as, let's look at this one again. We have 5 over root 7. Thank you so much. You want to join to learn? Send me a hello. So when you have something like this, you have it as 5. You have 5 over root 7. It is very, very easy to do. What do you have to do? When you have 5 over root 7, all you have to do is to multiply the surd with the irrational part. And the irrational part is the one that has the square root. That is the same thing as what? Root 7. Okay? So when you multiply to root 7, you also have to do that to the numerator, root 7. So when you have root 7, you multiply the numerators and also multiply the denominators. So 5 times root 7 is basically going to give you 5 root 7. Okay? Then root 7 times root 7, you are just free to multiply the numbers in the square root. So 7 times 7 is 49. So square root of 49 is 7. So here you've actually rationalized the surd, because rationalization of surd is just removing the irrational part from the what? Denominator. So that's what we've done already. So to rationalize surd is very, very easy. Okay, so stay tuned as we do that. Okay, you are from Indian. Teach me integration. I've done some work on that. You can just check my profile. I have a lot of integration works there. Okay, you can watch, share with friends. Another day we are going to look at integration. But now let's complete our surd. Okay, so let's try to rationalize with conjugate. Let's look at rationalization. Rationalization by conjugate. What do we mean by rationalizing surd by conjugate? To rationalize surd using conjugates is simple. Conjugate surd, conjugacy of surd, if you have a minus square root of b, the conjugacy only allows you to change the sign that separates them. So a minus root b will be will be a plus root b. The conjugate of the surd only allows you to change the sign that is separating them inside. So let's take, for instance, you are trying to rationalize surd like 2 over 2 minus root 3. If you look at this, it looks a bit complex. But for us to rationalize it, it is very, very easy. Okay? So what do you do to rationalize 2 over 2 minus root 3? It's simple. What you have to do is to multiply the conjugate of the denominator. Remember, I told you when you're talking about conjugate surd, you just change the sign. So the sign here is minus. So to multiply with the conjugate surd, I'm going to change this minus to plus. So we have it as 2 plus root 3. Then since you multiply to the denominator, you also have to multiply it to the numerator so that you can maintain equivalency. So what do you get? You have it as what? 2 plus root 3. So when you multiply that, you see that we have it as 2 into 2 plus root 3 divided by, this is now clearly a difference between two squares. And you know, in difference of two squares, we have it that a minus b squares is the same thing as a plus b into a minus b. That's difference of two squares formula. So since you know that, coming back to the question, since you have something like this, you can see that we have 2, and we have this, root 3, we have this. This is perfectly a difference of 2 square problem. So what do? You have 2 squared minus root 3 all squared. This is what the conjugate helps us to do. The conjugate helps the denominator to look clearly like a difference between 2 squares. So since you have this, what do you have to do? You have it as 2 into 2 plus root 3 divided by 2 squared is 4 minus the square root will cancel the square. So once the square root cancels the square, we have it as minus 3. And when you do 4 minus 3, what is 4 minus 3 if you are following? What is 4 minus 3? What is 4 minus 3? What is 4 minus 3? 4 minus 3 is basically 1. So the answer is 2 into 2 plus root 3. That's the answer, because 4 minus root 3 is basically 1. So this is how we rationalize sort by conjugate. Thank you so much. So we have to continue. So this is the simple way we rationalize sort by conjugate. If you have any problem, let's see that in the comments. If you have any problem, let's see that in the comments. Please do well to like, share, and comment. Let's say we are told to rationalize 3 over, we are trying to rationalize 3 over 5 minus root 7. To rationalize this sort, it is very, very easy. Okay? What you have to do is very simple. You have to check the conjugate of the sort. What's the conjugate? The conjugate of the denominator is basically 5 plus root 7. That's the conjugate for the denominator. So you have to, please let us know where you're watching from. Let us know where you're watching from, please. Please let us know where you're watching from. So since you have this, this is now 3 over 5 minus root 7. Then multiply by the conjugate. The conjugate is what? The conjugate is just changing the sign, as I told you earlier. So if I change the sign, I will now have 5 plus root 7. That's the conjugate sort. Please do well to like the live. Please like the live. So it doesn't finish here. Since you multiply by the conjugate sort, you have to, in the denominator, you also have to multiply the same conjugate sort to the numerator. So this becomes 5 plus root 7. Okay? So if you have 5 plus root 7, you are getting closer. This shows that the denominator looks clearly like a difference between 2 squares. Okay? So what do? You have it as 3 into this numerator multiply 3 into 5 plus root 7 divided by divided by 5 squared minus root 7 all squared. The conjugacy is playing its role. So what do you have? You have it as 3 times 5 is 15. So we go with 15. 3 times root 7 is plus 3 root 7 divided by 5 squared is 25 minus, this will cancel out this. What do you have at the end? You have it to be what? You have it to be 7. So what do you have? 5 plus 3 root 7 divided by, so what's 25 minus 7? 25 minus 7 is what? What's 25 minus 7? What's 25 minus 7? What's 25 minus 7? 25 minus 7 is what? What's 25 minus 7? What is 25 minus 7? 25 minus 7 is 18. Okay? 25 minus 7 is 18. Sorry, this is 5. This is 5. This will also be 5. I made a mistake. So wait, am I wrong? 3, please. 3. I made a mistake. 3. So that becomes the what? Easy way to do that. Okay? So it's very easy to rationalize sorts. Thank you guys. See you next.